General Hospital spoilers hint that Britt Westbourne is going to return home. Jason Morgan and Britt appear to have a strong romantic relationship. However, there may be a few problems that make their slow-burning romance even more compelling. Continue reading and let's get started talking about the exciting possibilities. Let's start with Jason finding Britt in Croatia. The right-hand man is renowned for being rather consistent. However, we can see that Britt is quite emotional and unable to cope. Britt recognizes her identity and recalls Jason, but her emotions are conflicted. The former doctor is quite angry with him, and she even chastised herself for waiting for him to call her. Then at the following moment she is telling him to get lost. It's safe to say that Britt still has feelings for Jason. How about Jason Morgan? Is your heart over with Jason? He clearly adores Britt as well. For starters, couldn't he? He couldn't get the woman out of his mind after seeing her at the airport. The man trusted his instincts and was shocked to see Britt at the Five Poppies resort. However, when she instructed him to get lost, he did so, but not before handing her a burner phone just in case. It's a good thing he did and waited for her call before boarding the jet back home. Jason remained staring at the phone, as if his instincts told him Britt needed him. Britt did indeed call after discovering Vaughn and Jocelyn Jacks had been together. The call was garbled, but Jason recognized her and realized she needed him. General Hospital spoilers predict that Jason will return Jocelyn, Vaughn, and Britt to Port Charles. Everyone will be astonished to learn that Britt is alive. Some others, like Liesl Obrecht, may embrace her. Then there are those who will criticize her, like Lulu Spencer. Everyone will have questions. Will she be willing to answer them? Whatever she was doing enabled her to receive life-saving medication. Britt worked in the lab according to Pascal, so she might be able to duplicate the recipe. Secrets and trauma. When Britt returns to town in Resume's routine, she will begin a new relationship with Jason. It'll most likely be a slow-burning romance, which are the greatest in soap operas. Britt appears to have a lot of trauma. The old Britt would have taken action to save Jocelyn and Vaughn, not fled. In the preview film for Monday, September 8, 2025, Jason convinces Britt that he isn't going to harm her. Why would she be afraid of him? True, there is a convoluted emotional history, but she appears to be physically afraid. So, may she have experienced some significant trauma while at the Five Poppies? Britt may need time to recover from this. Fortunately, Jason is a very patient man. Furthermore, while Jason and Britt were unexpectedly on the run together back in the day, they developed a strong bond. Let's hope that it happens again. Share your opinions in the comments area below. Keep watching ABC soap operas to find out what happens next. According to General Hospital spoilers, Drew Kane was shot in the back twice and survived thanks to surgery. Still don't we? We don't know what impact the shooting had on Drew, but it's too early to tell. Drew may have suffered lasting harm, but it is also possible that it affected his memory. Drew might not recall getting shot or suffer momentary amnesia. But is it possible that Drew could forget who he is and would revert to his twin brother Jason Morgan's memories? Did Drew Kane have Jason Morgan's memories for years and still may? It is unclear whether Drew is still with Jason. His memories were either erased or destroyed while he was held captive and assumed dead following the 2019 plane disaster. While Drew may still have had Jason's memories as well as his own, he may have suffered unknown spinal cord injury as a result of the gunshot. And given that his memories are still in his brain, thus he may still have them. Damage to his spinal cord could cause these memories to re-emerge. Drew could wake up believing he is Jason, with only his memories. Drew Kane believes he is Jason Morgan. When Drew awakens from his operation, he expects Sonny Corinthos, Carly Spencer, and Michael Corinthos to be there waiting for him to recover consciousness. Elizabeth Baldwin would be present when Drew awoke and startled if he asked to see Sonny, Carly, or Michael. Elizabeth wondered why he wanted to see them. Drew? He would assure her that of course he does. They are his family. Elizabeth would seem perplexed, and Drew may say something to Liz that would indicate that he believes he is Jason, surprising her. Everyone is shocked that Drew Kane thinks he is Jason Morgan when word spreads throughout Port Charles that Drew has lost recollection of himself and believes he is Jason. Everyone is shocked, stunned, and in some cases relieved. It would need to be conveyed to him that he is Drew, not Jason, and he has Jason. His memories reside in his brain. It would be an intriguing twist, as the Drew who has previously appeared may fade into memory, and everyone would be pleased that that man is no longer scaring them. It would change everything, and Willow Tate's spiral could worsen as a result of this twist. Could Drew go back to having just Jason's memories and have to start again? What do you think? What are your thoughts? Do you believe Drew could wake up with Jason's memory? Will this alleviate many Port Charles residents? Is he Drew? Is his reign of terror now over now that he is no longer alive? Can't recall anything? Keep watching General Hospital weekdays on ABC to find out what comes next. What about Dawn? Don't forget to come back here for all the latest General Hospital information, news, and spoilers. The rain fell in flakes, distorting the scene beyond the car window, and Jason grasped the steering wheel, his knuckles whitening against the worn leather. The wipers tried to keep up, their regular squeak providing a slight backdrop to the storm. An unrelenting roar. Britt sat beside him in stillness, arms crossed tightly across her chest, her gaze locked on the blurred lights of passing cars. The air between them was thick, not with the warmth of their once unbreakable bond, but with something more substantial, unspoken words, buried secrets, and the weight of time apart. They were no longer teenagers, so who? They had promised to love each other forever, their commitments carved in stolen moments beneath starlit sky. Life had taken them in opposing directions, and now by chance, they were strangers sharing a car, tied by a frail thread of history and a tragedy neither could avoid. It had been 10 years since they'd seen each other. 10 years have passed since the night they stood in the parking lot of their high school, voices rising, tears streaming, tearing apart their future. It was intended. Jason wanted to leave their little community to pursue aspirations of a better life, but Britt couldn't. Can't bear to leave her only home? After a chaotic childhood, this was the only place she felt safe. We'd been too young to compromise, too determined to bend, and so were they. Have you parted ways? Jason moved to the city, and Britt returned to the calm life she believed would heal her. They'd both been incorrect. Jason looked at her now, her profile standing out against the dim glow of the dashboard. Her hair, which had once been a cascade of chestnut curls, was now shorter and tucked behind her ears, and there were small creases at the corners of her eyes that hadn't. I have not been there before. She was still attractive, but it was a different type of beauty. Harder, more guarded, like a flower that had learned to flourish in the shade. He wanted to ask her about her life and the years that had passed, but the words stuck in his throat. What right did he have to pry? He walked away. He'd chosen ambition over her. And yet, here they were, driving through the storm because a phone call had shattered the barriers they built around their past. Was the call from Britt? Emily, his sister, spoke through the static, her voice shaking. Had their mother, Diane, been involved in a car accident? A nasty one. Emily urged Jason to return to town while she was in the hospital, clinging to life. Britt needs you, right? Dee said. And those 3 words were enough to yank him from his downtown apartment and his life. Dee built, and then returned to his original location? Did he swear? I'd never return. Hadn't he? Britt was anticipated to be at the airport, waiting for him, her eyes red-rimmed and her mouth set. Had she? You hadn't expected him either? Would you come to pick up Emily, not him? But when their gazes met across the terminal, something wordless occurred between them. Didn't they? You did not embrace, did you? Don't say anything more than is absolutely necessary. I volunteered to drive him to the hospital and he accepted because what else could he do? The automobile hit a pothole, jarring them both. Britt's hand went out to hold herself against the dashboard, and their gazes locked briefly. Hers were dark and stormy, filled with agony that mirrored his. Are you okay? He inquired, his voice hoarse. Fine. She spoke hurriedly and returned her gaze to the window. Her voice was clipped, but he noticed the quiver in it. Was it the same as his? I heard all those years ago when she tried to disguise her terror. He wanted to reach for her hand and tell her she didn't. I didn't have to be strong for him, but he wasn't. Could he? Instead, he tightened his grasp on the steering wheel and concentrated on the road, the rain hammering harder now, as if the sky itself was grieving. Britt? Her mother had always been a complex character in her life. Diane was a lady who loved madly but destructively, her feelings entwined with addiction and instability. Britt had spent her childhood cleaning up after her mother, drinking binges, concealing empty bottles, and answering the door when creditors knocked. Jason had been her steadfast anchor in the midst of upheaval. I'd hugged her when she sobbed, and made her laugh when she believed she shouldn't. I had forgotten how and promised her a future where I'd never have to experience that type of fear again. But hadn't he? I don't understand, actually. Hadn't he? I did not witness it. And when did he leave? Had he removed a piece of her, leaving her to face her mother? Demons alone. Diane was now battling for her life, while Britt was disintegrating. Jason could see it in the way her hands trembled and she bit her lip till it bled. Did he wish to apologize to her? For leaving, not phoning, and letting their love pass through his fingers like sand. Apologies, however, felt hollow and insufficient to bridge the gap between them. Instead, he drove, the hospital looming closer with each mile, a place that felt like both a reckoning and a homecoming. The collision took place on a route similar to this one, sloppy with rain and shrouded in darkness. Diane had been traveling alone when her car veered off the highway and into a ditch. Nobody knew why. Perhaps she'd been drinking? I'd fallen asleep. Perhaps it was simply the storm. Where were the cops? Not saying anything, and Emily? The updates were rushed and fragmentary. All they knew was that Diane was in surgery and her odds were poor. Hadn't Britt? Jason didn't say it out loud, but he could tell she was bracing herself for the worst. He could see it in the way she held herself, as if she were bracing for a blow she had been expecting her entire life. They arrived at the hospital shortly after midnight, the parking lot a sea of wet asphalt under flickering spotlights. Britt parked the car, but did she? T moved to get out. Her hands remained on the wheel, her breathing shallow. Do not do this. She whispered so softly that he almost didn't. I can't hear her. Don't you? Is it necessary to accomplish it alone? He said, startling himself with the consistency of his voice. She looked at him, really looked at him, and he saw the girl for a little moment, didn't he? Did you love it? Who is it, exactly? She trusted him with her heart, secrets, and pain. But her countenance hardened, and she opened the door, going out into the rain without saying anything. The hospital was a jumble of white walls and antiseptic scents, the kind of place where time stretched and contracted with every monitor beep. Emily waited for them in the ICU waiting area, her face pallid and teary. She threw her arms around Britt, then Jason, her words coming out quickly. Diane was out of surgery, but wasn't it? That's good. Brain injury, internal hemorrhage, and a shattered spine. The physicians did everything they could, but what about Emily? Her voice broke as she said, "Don't they? I'm not sure if she does. Will they wake up?" Britt nodded, her face expressionless, and sat in one of the plastic seats, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. Jason stood nervously, unsure of his position. Wasn't he? Emily is no longer part of the family, but who is? His eyes pleaded for him to stay. Charles from a deadly onslaught. The victory was more than just a triumph over an external threat. It was also a personal milestone for Drew, who demonstrated to himself and others that he was still capable of being the hero he once was. Following the confrontation, Drew found himself at a crossroads. His connections with Willow, Scout, and the Quartermain family were healing, but the scars from his past lingered. He understood that his journey to redemption would be ongoing, necessitating constant attention to maintain the gains he had made. Drew did, however, feel at peace for the first time in years. He had confronted his demons, both internal and external, and emerged stronger for it. His 2 surgeries saved his life, but his will to change saved his soul. The residents of Port Charles began to perceive Drew in a new light. His heroic actions, combined with sincere efforts to make atonement, helped to rebuild his reputation as an honorable guy. Monica, the voice of wisdom, welcomed his development, expressing pride in the son who had worked so hard to retake his place in the family. Willow too began to consider a future with Drew, realizing that his metamorphosis was more than just a return to his former self. It was the emergence of a stronger, more self-aware version of the man she loved. Drew's narrative highlights the complexities of human nature and the power of redemption. In Port Charles, where secrets and betrayals are as prevalent as the sun, Drew's path stands out as a testament to the possibilities of transformation. His dramatic change from hero to villain and back again is a story that echoes General Hospital's basic themes of love, grief, and the unwavering hope for a brighter tomorrow. Drew continues to face life's hardships, carrying with him the lessons of his history, serving as a beacon of hope for those who believe that even the darkest pathways can lead to light. Drew's life had been defined by struggles, some on the outside, some deep within himself, but nothing prepared him for the shift he was about to undergo. After months of suffering, uncertainty, and heartache, he found himself on the verge of a new chapter, one he had never believed possible. Drew Kane's 2 operations had left him physically scarred and emotionally wounded, but he was on his way back to being the hero so many remembered, the man who once carried the weight of others before facing his own worries. And in the tumultuous environment of Port Charles, his return was more than just survival. It was about redemption, second chances, and demonstrating that even in the darkest times, a hero can rise again. The weeks following his surgery had been exhausting. He had endured excruciating pain, several restless nights, and the nagging feeling that he would never be the same. Drew refused to back down despite physicians' warnings about the risks. He needed to rediscover his life, purpose, and sense of self. More importantly, he needed to demonstrate his loved ones that he was not giving up. His recuperation was everything but simple. He spent long hours in therapy, pushing his body to lengths he didn't realize it could handle. There were times when he wanted to give up, when irritation engulfed him, but he remembered the people who needed him. Scout, Sam, Michael, Willow, and the many lives interwoven with his. This notion alone spurred his determination. He was not only curing himself but also for them. As the days moved into weeks, minor successes became monumental. The first time he walked without assistance, the first time he slept through the night without waking up in pain, the first time he looked in the mirror and didn't see a broken man staring back. But Drew's change was more than simply physical. Inside, something had changed. Surviving 2 operations pushed him to examine his past and the decisions that had brought him here. He reflected on the years he spent trying to meet expectations, the regrets he held, and the moments he wished he could change. For so long, he had been absorbed by the idea of control, attempting to cure everything around him, but this time he knew that some conflicts needed to be waged differently. Sam saw the shift in him first. Their interactions became warmer, more open, and less guarded. She saw the drive in his eyes return, but there was also a quiet strength, a vulnerability he hadn't previously displayed. He was no longer hiding from his sorrow. Instead, he was embracing it and allowing it to remind him of what was truly important. For Scout, this meant everything. Her father was smiling, laughing, and present in a way she hadn't seen in a long time. Nonetheless, the change presented obstacles. Drew had returned to a more confusing world than before, since Port Charles had altered during his absence. Sunny's empire was in jeopardy, Nina's secrets threatened to destabilize everything around her, and Michael's growing distrust had strained the family dynamic. Drew knew he couldn't stay on the sidelines forever. His instincts, his desire to defend those he loved about, drew him back into the pandemonium, but this time he planned to handle things differently. The old Drew would have behaved rashly, dashing into danger without second thought. But this new Drew, created from suffering and resilience, was more deliberate and patient. He realized that heroism required more than just taking the biggest risks. It was about understanding when to fight, when to back off, and when to trust those around him. That clarity made him deadly in a new way, and Port Charles was about to discover what he was capable of. When he met Carly, he experienced one of his most significant life changes. Their connection had always been intricate, entwined with loyalty, history, and mutual understanding. Carly was one of the few individuals who actually believed in him when others questioned his motives, and she had been by his side during some of his worst times. She was suddenly seeing Drew as she had always known him to be, strong, grounded, and unafraid to confront the repercussions of his history. Carly was caught in a tempest of her own, trying to keep her footing amidst shifting alliances and damaged relationships. Drew stepped up for her in unexpected ways, offering support without judgment, and becoming a constant presence when all else seemed uncertain. They discovered moments of serenity amidst the pandemonium, little pauses where they could breathe, ponder, and gather their courage to face whatever came next. When he arrived at the secluded overlook where she had asked him to meet her, Britt was already there, resting against her car, rain soaking through her jacket and running down her hair. For a period, neither of them spoke. The years that separated them weighed thick in the air, unspoken words pressing down until Jason eventually broke the stillness. "Shouldn't you? Why are you out here?" He spoke gently, his tone coarser than he wanted. Britt glanced up, her eyes tired but alert. "Neither should you." Jason took a step closer and studied her features. She appeared fatigued, haunted even, as if life had drained every ounce of her power. And yet, beneath the exhaustion, was there still that spark? The same fire that drew him to her years before. It stung to watch her like way, knowing he was once a part of the reason I'd erected those defenses. "Didn't I? I don't know who else to call," she finally admitted, her voice shaking with vulnerability. Everything. Is it going apart, Jason?" He wanted to reach for her, draw her into his arms, and vow to repair everything, but such promises had previously burnt him. Instead he said quietly, "Then we'll work it out. Together?" The word hung between them like a fragile truce, unspoken wounds gradually mending beneath the surface. Britt lowered her gaze and nodded once, but the sound of tires on wet pavement interrupted the fragile stillness. Jason's head snapped up just in time to notice headlights whirling furiously down the icy road. "Britt?" he yelled, seizing her arm immediately. The automobile appeared out of nowhere, hydroplaning around the turn. Did time slow down in that moment? "Britt, what's with the motor sound and the strong spray of water?" A shocked gasp? But Jason, her instincts kicked in. He pushed her hard toward the embankment, placing his own body between her and the approaching truck. The impact was deafening. Jason felt a crushing force slam into him, the metal crunching and his body hurled violently across the road. Britt yelled his name, but the pounding rain and ringing in his ears drowned out her voice. He tried to move, but his body refused to respond, his breathing quick and shallow. "Jason! No, stay with me, Britt." Her hands were now quivering on his face, her tears mixing with the rain as she battled to keep him awake. "Dawn, do you dare to abandon me like this?" He tried to concentrate on her, to anchor himself in the sight of her anxious eyes, but everything was blurring. Rain, cold, and anguish. For a time he considered the years they'd lost, the opportunities they never took, the things they never said. And in that moment, regret hurt deeper than any wound. I apologize," he mumbled, barely audible. "Dawn, don't you apologize?" She sobbed and clutched his hand hard. "Don't you? You will not be able to achieve that, Jason. Don't you? Get to save me only to abandon me again?" He wanted to tell her he wasn't. Is he going to go fight or stay? However, darkness was approaching and too soon. The flashing lights of an incoming ambulance faded into the storm, with voices shouting instructions in the distance while Britt refused to let go of him, screaming at the paramedics to hurry. Hours later, in the frigid sterility of General Hospital, Britt waited outside the trauma room, her clothes moist and her hands quivering. The hallway seemed forever, the clock ticking louder than her own heartbeat. Every minute without an update seemed like an eternity. She kept rehearsing the accident in her memory, the sound of metal wrenching, Jason lying unmoving, and the helplessness that gnawed at her heart. Britt's stomach dropped when the surgeon emerged, his countenance somber. "Is it stable?" the doctor said carefully. "But it's critical. We were able to halt the bleeding, but the injuries were severe. The next 24 hours will decide everything."